All right, so give me a second. I'll be right back, and we'll do this. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome. We're back and we're live. So today we're going to be talking about energy metabolism. And yes, thank you. I see your comments. Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. Today we're going to be talking about energy metabolism, how stimulating your vagus nerve or sonicating your vagus nerve and other parts of your vagus pathway can actually increase your own personal energy. What we're seeing from the front lines of folks who are around the world, around the country, using sonication, and what their experiences have been like so far from a short-term perspective, but also from what's a long-term. What does it look like if you were to sonicate your vagus nerve for 6 months, right? What could that look like? Because all these things add up. 1% improvement day over day over day can have oftentimes more powerful impacts on your health than you can even imagine from day one. So super stoked. But before we do that, we're going to do our simultaneous squeeze. You know how it goes. Follow my instructions. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. Breathe in. Sip of air. Hold and squeeze. And slowly exhale. Good. Sometimes I feel like a warmth around the back of my ears. It feels really good. So you know that you did that Valsalva squeeze right if you oftentimes feel some sensation. And every time you do it, it might be different. For me, it's every time I do the Valsalva squeeze, I feel just kind of a different sensation. So cool. So thanks for joining. So in today's video topic, here's what we're going to cover. The vagus nerve plays a crucial role in regulating various bodily functions, including and not limited to energy metabolism. The intricate network of the vagus nerve experience, let's just say, also known as the 10th cranial nerve or the wandering nerve, the vagus nerve, connects the brainstem here, about here, to many vital organs throughout the body, such as your heart, your lungs, and your gastrointestinal tract, especially your pancreas, which is where insulin is produced, okay? Now, through this extensive reach, the vagus nerve influences several physiological processes, including digestion, heart rate, and even mental focus. There is a network of your vagus nerve that travels all the way up to your prefrontal cortex right here, the part of your brain that makes you, I'm going to air quote, human, is actually connected to your vagus nerve. And there's a direct cholinergic network that lights up your prefrontal cortex when you sonicate your vagus nerve. This is pretty cool. So let's start with the first key aspect of when we're talking about metabolism and energy. We're really talking about things like the pancreas and insulin, okay? These two things are important. There's also ATP, mitochondria. There's a lot of these terms are directly involved in this specific part of the vagus nerve network. So to start here, so in understanding the connection between the vagus nerve and energy metabolism, it's a very large cycle, it's essential to dive into the role that the pancreas plays. Your pancreas, just so you know, physically is located right about here on your, right below your rib cage, okay? This part right here, okay? That's where your pancreas is located. If you need further reference, I highly encourage you guys to go Google it after this video is done so you can see a picture of where that is located so that you know in advance as well, should you be in a program with us, should you want to do that you have a better sense of where can you sonicate the vagus nerve branch that goes to the pancreas, right? And hopefully after today's video, you'll be like, this is absolutely something that I should be doing. You may come to that conclusion, and that would be fantastic if you do believe that. But it's not everybody on the world has to do this, for sure. So the pancreas secretes insulin. Uh, Insulin is a hormone that's responsible for regulating blood sugar. And insulin helps transport glucose, basically sugar, a form of sugar, from the bloodstream into your cells. So, how do your cells get energy? It's by insulin docking and locking onto the surface of a cell, opening up a channel, and glucose goes in. Now, when you have diabetes and you stop producing insulin, then the glucose basically flows around your blood forever, and too much sugar in your blood can lead to things like really bad infections. It essentially decays and eats away at your cellular walls throughout your body. And that's what these insulin resistance kinds of situations can get you. So that can be really bad. So, of course, we know when the pancreas functions properly, then you have insulin release, and that happens when blood sugar levels rise. So if you eat food, if you eat sugar, anything like that, after a meal, your insulin should naturally be pumped out of your pancreas. However, when the body becomes less sensitive to insulin, then, or your pancreas doesn't produce enough insulin, it can lead to a condition called type 2 diabetes. This is like adult onset diabetes, basically, not the one that you're born with, which type 1. Type 2 diabetes is a metabolic disorder which disrupts the normal energy metabolism process and can have severe consequences on overall health. Now, even if you think you're healthy, I've talked to a lot of people who are normal weight, who are regularly healthy. The real kicker is with how much stuff that we eat in America and in the West, Canada, maybe Europe, is that there's so much sugar snuck into everything. I'm talking everything that can have sugar in it probably has sugar in it. Highly processed sugar. Yeah, Sarah, exactly. It is an absolute epidemic. It's horrible. So people who don't even seem like a risk case for type 2 diabetes are still developing type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes. So this is a big issue. This can be life-threatening ultimately. And some of the consequences of untreated diabetes is obviously the infection potential, but it's extremity infection. So one of the first things, not to get graphic here, but just so you guys know, is that type 2 diabetes past the age of 50 and 60 can lead to necrosis of your feet. So you typically see the vasculature in the feet being so worn out from this high blood sugar levels with lack of insulin, is that people's feet start to get infected, and then they have to get, nasty things happen. So it's not fun. Definitely don't want to do anything. You don't want to get in that camp. So let's talk about the next section. So stimulating or sonicating the vagus nerve for improved energy metabolism, right? Now this applies to everybody watching because your vagus nerve does have to get stimulated. It is getting stimulated when you eat food. If your vagus nerve didn't activate after a meal, then you would have a big problem. And there actually is a test that they do. It's called a sham feeding pancreatic enzyme test, where they feed you food that isn't rich in nutrients, and then they measure the corresponding increase in pancreatic enzymes in your stomach. So there are vagus nerve health tests that used to be done more commonly, have kind of fallen out of popularity, but are now coming back because, partially no thanks to me, patients in hospitals are asking, what about my vagus nerve? Is my vagus nerve working or not? And there is a pancreas, it's called a sham feeding test. And you can go to your doctor and you can ask them, I want to order a sham feeding test. You're going to have to get it approved by your doctor because it's kind of an inpatient procedure. They're going to have to monitor you for hours in the hospital while you do this. So you're going to have to ask your doctor, and that is going to be able to tell you categorically that you do have a vagus nerve issue somewhere between your neck and your stomach and your pancreas. That's a good test. So, anyway, looking at the vagus nerve, it does absolutely regulate pancreatic function 100%. So recent studies have suggested, and I think we've now shown pretty categorically, that stimulating the vagus nerve may have a positive impact on energy metabolism and can potentially help prevent and treat type 2 diabetes. This is really major. So researchers have found that activating the vagus nerve can enhance. Additionally, I mean, that's a major point I don't want to just skip over too much, but for the sake of brevity here, I'll just say that yes, there is a use case for sonication only of the pancreas with ultrasound that has shown it can reverse type 2 diabetes with a single treatment, which is major news. But again, you're not going to hear that on CNN because there are too many drugs that are for sale for type 2 diabetes to make that anything that you'll ever hear about anytime soon. So anyway, that's kind of sad, but there's good and bad in that. So researchers have also found that activating the vagus nerve can enhance mental focus, increase energy levels, promote deeper sleep, and improve overall metabolism. That's also the case. So by sonicating the vagus nerve, researchers believe it could lead to increased insulin sensitivity and improved glucose uptake by cells because of that insulin cycle. So this stimulation activity can activate specific receptors in your pancreas called B cells or beta cells, BETA, beta cells, basically, if you don't have an accent. And this can trigger a cascade of events that ultimately enhance energy metabolism. Right? You start the domino effect from the vagus nerve, and ultimately that can lead to enhanced mental, cognitive, energy function. Okay? So, moreover, stimulating the nerve has been shown to additionally reduce inflammation. That right there is a huge use case for vagus nerve stimulation. Just that alone makes sonication of the vagus nerve 100% worth it. So the fact that stimulating or activating the vagus nerve properly in the right ways can reduce inflammation when needed is associated also with preventing the further damage that inflammation does to the pancreas, right? Because type 2 diabetes, guys, is developed when inflammation is constant and chronic in the pancreas. So insulin resistance is first caused by inflammation. And then once that inflammation has done enough damage to the pancreas and you don't produce insulin, then you have inflammation and actual cellular damage across your blood network around your cardiovascular system. And then that causes further inflammation. And you can see how you don't want this to go further past a certain point. And what would I say, given that we know that there are some really bad pathways to go down? You know, you can certainly walk down any of these pathways. Many people choose to do that, either willingly or unwillingly. Just let their health slide and it's all good. Hey, you know, whatever. I like pizza. I like soda. I like candy. Like adult humans are just over on, if you go to TikTok and you search for what I eat in a day, you'll see people who are clearly diabetic, clearly obese, literally just eating probably 4,000 to 5,000 calories of food plus per day, just stuffing their faces full of ultra processed foods. And then there are natural absolute consequences from that. Now, here's the other thing. Roseanne, I see your question. I'll get to that in a second. That's a great question, actually. People talk about this thing called, like, you know, we're talking about privilege, right? People talk about thin privilege, right? That thin people have privilege because people who are overweight have to struggle in society that's not built for people who are 400 or 500 pounds. But I wouldn't necessarily call it, personally, I wouldn't call it thin privilege. I'd probably call it overweight consequences. There are consequences to that type of behavior, right? It'd be like someone in San Francisco being, I don't want to use the word junkie, but someone who's a hardcore dyed in the wool addict, a fentanyl addict, using every single day, nodding off, to then go to someone who's sober and say, "Oh, you don't get my situation. You have sober privilege. Oh, because you have a house and you still have a job and you still have a family and you still have a cohesive life. You have sober privilege." It's like, listen, mofo, that's not sober privilege. That what you're really thinking about is called addiction consequences, okay? The fact of the matter is that is a thing, okay? So how you treat your body and what you're eating has consequences. And just one little dovetail here before I do want to answer your question here, Rosanna. And hopefully if I've lost all of you, you're not all like very, highly triggerable people, because I'm trying to tell the truth here as much as I can. Somebody recently, just today, asked me if the vagus nerve has any connection to addiction. And there is a big connection to addiction. This is a big one. This is one that you should know. Bulimia nerviosa. When people binge eat food and then vomit, they purge, binging and purging. It's a vicious cycle. When you binge eat food, you fill your stomach up, your vagus nerve is activated. When you eat food and you're digesting, your vagus nerve is very active. So the more food you eat, the more food addiction you have, the more you're basically the more you are becoming addicted to vagus nerve stimulation through really bad means. And then when you purge and you vomit, when you're puking, sorry to get graphic, right? But when that's happening, you're also stimulating your vagus nerve also. So on both ends of the spectrum of overeating and then purging, you're stimulating your vagus nerve in one way and another way. And so you bounce back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Now, bulimia nerviosa is considered to be one of the top forms of addiction in terms of difficulty to treat. People have to go to 6 months of addiction treatment at an in-care facility. Typically, it can cost somewhere up to $30,000 per month for treatment to be provided, because that is such an addictive thing. You can't quit eating cold turkey. So they have to closely monitor every single little last thing, and they have to be very careful, because that is a very dangerous and very pernicious addiction to have. So your vagus nerve, you can develop addictions to the effects of vagus nerve stimulation in those ways. So you have to be very careful if you're not monitoring your eating. So we can see, yes, I'm making a big point of this, and maybe it's a little, not as nuanced here, but there are real consequences here, right? I'd love for someone to hear what I'm saying and be like, maybe I'll think twice about binging food the next time I'm out. You don't ever need to binge. You don't need to have cheat days. You don't need to do 6,000 calories. You don't need to get high and eat as much food as you possibly can, okay? Very few of you even have that as an issue, but I don't know everybody in the Facebook group, obviously. So yeah, that's what I like to say. There's an addiction to eating for sure, and that's a spectrum too. So everybody can have that. All right. So Rosanna, you have a question here. Can this apply to animals with diabetes/insulin issues as well? My suspicion is, if you're looking at like a pet dog, for instance, like a pet dog, like a family dog, that what I'm teaching here fundamentally would probably apply there too. But if we're talking about like a pet iguana, I don't know. I would say probably not. Probably not. So a mammalian pet or an animal like a horse or a cow or sheep or a cat or a dog, those types of vertebrate land animals, I believe that this would apply. If maybe you have a pet chimpanzee, I don't know, maybe you have a pet macaque monkey. I think it could apply to all of those. But okay, cool. Yeah, so you're right. Pet cat. Oh, brother's cat is recovering from diabetes now. Yeah, so the anatomical location is exactly the same, relatively speaking, right? In terms of where the rib cage is located and where the pancreas is located. So, yes, the answer would be yes. More hair on that location for sure, but definitely, definitely potential. I guess the question I would ask is, how would you know? Because people who have type 2 diabetes can oftentimes feel that they have high blood glucose sugar levels, but I think they have blood glucose testers for animals too. So you would just test that. You could see the treatment worked with one treatment. The treatment is literally one single time. If you're sonicating, it's a single treatment. If you hit the right area, I would say do it a couple of times. Obviously, you would do it over weeks and weeks. So yeah, very cool. See, there you go. I don't even know much about this. See, this is the genius of having a predictive mind. I'm guessing that they just measure the blood glucose of an animal who has diabetes and insulin issues, and they take their blood glucose twice a day. So yeah, good. So that's fantastic. We're learning something. We're saving animals here too. This is fantastic. So let's go on to the next section. Yeah, woohoo! So rethinking type 2 diabetes prevention, right? And it's a little bit of what I just kind of riffed on here, but I think it's important. So traditionally, preventing type 2 diabetes has focused on lifestyle changes, such as diet and exercise. Now, while these remain essential components, the potential of stimulating the vagus nerve or sonicating the vagus nerve, or the pancreas to be particular, to improve energy metabolism offers a potential exciting new avenue for preventative measures. So if you're even, the problem here is if you do get a test and your doctor does determine early onset diabetes, for instance, there's not a lot that you can do preventatively. Of course, you can change your lifestyle, change your diet, add exercise, all things that all of you should be doing. None of those things should be optional. None of those things are optional at any level, right? Like, hands down, those are not optional, okay? You should be getting some movement of your body every single day, and you should not be eating ultra-processed foods. That's a fact, right? Don't be so weak that you're like reaching for soda every single day. I saw a video yesterday, a medical case study on a man who drank 7 liters of Coca-Cola every single day. 7 liters. Big bottles. Sounds delicious. He had something called like ketonuria or something like that. His like kidneys stopped being able to process potassium. He was hospitalized for weeks and weeks, and it almost killed him. So yeah, and the guy's like, no, but if I don't drink my Coca-Cola, I get a headache, so I have to drink my Coca-Cola. It's like, see, that's called circular reasoning. Yeah, you feel like garbage when you're not eating the ultra-processed foods because it's intentionally like that. That's why cigarette companies make so much money. Cigarette companies know that the cigarettes are addictive. They're not doing it so that you just are full of nicotine. There's addictive potential to ultra-processed, highly refined foods too, okay? So lifestyle modifications should absolutely be done. So looking ahead as well at further research in this space, if we can potentially confirm the positive effects of vagus nerve activation on energy metabolism, we could be looking at a revolutionary modification to how we approach type 2 diabetes across the country. And this could lead to better prevention and ultimately treatment, so that if somebody's at pre-diabetes, that they never have the potential, they never have the opportunity to develop full-blown type 2 diabetes. That could be cool. So by targeting the underlying mechanisms that impact energy metabolism, right? The pancreas is a big target. The vagus nerve innervation into your pancreas is the target area. These interventions aimed at stimulating the vagus nerve or sonicating the vagus nerve may provide a novel and effective strategy for combating this prevalent metabolic disorder. That's just to give you an example of how powerful is vagus nerve sonication. It's something that is severely under-treatable, like type 2 diabetes. Imagine what that could look like in a normal, healthy human being. These things always point in one upward direction, right? If you're increasing energy metabolism, take someone who's already at a pretty high level of energy and you start stimulating, sonicating some of these metabolic pathways for mitochondrial energy, ATP production, mental focus, clarity, removing fatigue, removing brain fog. These kinds of things are all in the domain, all in the Venn diagram of the energy landscape, this energy Venn diagram of the vagus nerve. So it could be really, really powerful to start sonicating the vagus nerve to get your energy back. You're going to get better prefrontal cortex activation. You're going to get smarter, potentially. And yeah, all kinds of really good stuff can come from this. This kind of stuff is pretty magical. So in conclusion, as we know, the vagus nerve plays a critical role in energy metabolism, as we've covered today, influencing processes such as insulin sensitivity, glucose uptake, and inflammation are all processes that are regulated in large part by your vagus nerve. So keeping your vagus nerve healthy kind of should be like a prime directive if it were me, right? And I could say a lot about that. There's so much I want to say about that, but of course we have many more videos to be able to do and many more opportunities to have that further discussion about how that happens. But that is the case. So sonicating the vagus nerve shows promise in enhancing mental focus, boosting energy levels, promoting better sleep. This is a big one, folks. Promoting better sleep post-sonication of the vagus nerve is like one of the top features of VNS from the very first week or two in all cases, in almost every single case that I've ever seen, right? So this is a big one. Better sleep, better metabolism, better energy, better focus. Sleep is deeply connected to the health or the unhealth of your vagus nerve. They're very connected. And so also improving overall metabolism is very important, right? You could be eating a ton of food, but if your metabolism is not working, you're not going to really be able to get much of that food as energy. It's going to be blocked. Your stomach's not going to be able to process it. Your pancreas cannot produce the enzymes that go into your stomach to digest the food that you just ate. This is all downstream of the vagus nerve. Go into the Facebook group. Look at a post from, I think it was 2 days ago that I posted into the Facebook group, or go follow my vagus nerve stimulation and repair public Facebook page on Facebook, vagus nerve stimulation repair. And I talked about the surgical mishaps that happen where the vagus nerve gets cut in the neck or in the esophagus or in the stomach or the appendix, all locations where your vagus nerve is located. And just look at the comments from real people who say, oh my God, I had a surgery. Somebody said they removed 10 or 15 inches of literal vagus nerve from their esophagus. You know, your vagus nerve travels all the way down your esophagus. It wraps around it like a spider web. If you start cutting around your throat in your vagus nerve through thyroid removal, through a surgery, you are literally setting yourself up for some pretty bad side effects. Okay. They said they can't digest food. They have basically the equivalent of like dysmotility. The side effects from cutting the vagus nerve are substantial. Surgical accidents will deeply, deeply affect the quality of your life. So it's pretty important. It's pretty darn important. So anyway, as investigations and research continues, as it will always continue to do, harnessing the power of vagus nerve sonication could prove to be an effective preventative measure against type 2 diabetes, potentially altering the landscape of diabetes management and offering new hope for those at risk. But also, on the other end, is offering hope for normal people who may not have type 2 diabetes, but do encounter metabolic dysfunction. And that can come in all kinds of ways. I typically see that when people are post-COVID. Post-COVID infection seems to affect the vagus nerve to the degree that people have post-exertional malaise or exercise intolerance. So these are also areas of targets for VNS as well. So yeah, that's it. That will wrap it up for today, you guys. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you learned something that makes you go, wow, if not to help you, but also to help someone that you know. Because raise your hand if you know somebody in your network of friends, right, that has either it's pre-diabetic or has type 2 diabetes, right? We even have people here on Facebook where they have family pets with diabetes. Come on, right? So could you not practically take this information and go and help someone in your network? Absolutely, I believe you could. And how can you do that? There are so many ways that you can stimulate your vagus nerve. Just being a good friend can stimulate someone's vagus nerve. Did you know that? Calling up a good friend, going and giving them a hug, telling them that you care, all this kind of stuff, and it's amazing. So yeah, anyway, but I do want to open the door for any questions on YouTube, questions on Facebook. If you have any, start typing those in. I'm going to stay live for a few more moments to be able to take any last questions. If you're also watching the replay, please feel free to ask questions there, and I will still be able to respond after the video is done. But yeah, while if any questions are coming in, I will certainly get to those. You're welcome, Amy. Thank you for your message. Callie as well. Thank you. Could you not? I wish I could get in here more and go and help someone. I'm usually teaching yoga. Okay, cool. Well, I love that you're teaching yoga. That's fantastic. And I'm going to like that comment. That's beautiful. Good. Yeah, I know you are a huge resource for the community. And that you're doing all that kind of stuff, right? So that's good. Jennifer, you wrote have. Maybe that means you have a question. Definitely. I'll be here. I'll wait. Feel free to formulate your question. Take your time. Give me a second. Let me just check on anywhere else where I might have a question that come in. Good. Okay. Cool. Good. Yes. So while any last questions come in, what I will say is, I believe that the best ways to get the vagus nerve to function properly is likely going to be through sonication if you have a vagus nerve issue. If you have a tangible issue with your vagus nerve, sonication, VNS, should be performed. If you're let's say you're a 22-year-old female who lives in Bali and you're healthy as all heck, then my recommendation for you would be to meditate and do 4-7-8 breathing, okay? And really just take care of yourself at that age. Anything that I'm saying, probably I don't believe that there are many 22-year-old female influencers over on TikTok who are living in Bali and going on the beach in their sari every day are really practically dealing with any major vagus nerve issues or and I don't believe they're at risk for type 2 diabetes. So everything I'm saying pretty much does not apply there. So if you see 22-year-old influencers saying to you, oh gosh, you just need to need to breathe, like it's easy, then you're like, I don't know if I trust that, because if I had epilepsy and I was having seizures, I'd probably want to go for the actual thing, like the actual stimulator. But that's just me. Okay, Callie, I see your message. Yes, voice typing can be problematic. Jennifer, I do see your question here. So, do you think a hiatal hernia can impact the vagus nerve? Yes. Yes. And cause voice issues? Yes. And anxiety? Yes. Definitely. Yeah, that's it. Yep. That's my answer. 100%. A hiatal hernia is basically pinching your vagus nerve right here, right where your diaphragm and your esophagus meet, and your stomach, right at that median point. And it's basically like squeezing your vagus nerve with the type of pressure that it's not built to be under. And it's definitely going to impact your vagus nerve, and not in a good way. I did this mental exercise the other day. Let's say that I go into, I don't know, if you guys ever seen the insides of a computer. I know computers these days are pretty micro, but think about 10 years ago. You opened up a computer, or you look inside the circuit board of a laptop, maybe had it cleaned, right? There's all kinds of little green circuit boards and electronics. And let's say your little kid takes a screwdriver and goes like this, just runs it over, and you see sparks shooting off of the circuit board. And then, but you're like, oh my God, I hope nothing wrong happened. But you still put it together. Do this mental experiment. What is more likely? It's literally just what is more likely, statistically speaking, is going to happen. And there is a point to this question. Do you think when you turn that laptop back on that has been scraped across with a metal object and caused sparking, do you think that the laptop is going to run better than before? Like that magically made things, fixed something, randomly just scraping across it, right? Which is not what it was meant for. Or do you think it's going to be more likely that it works either terribly or it doesn't turn on at all? That it's completely broken and trash. Okay? So just, again, I'll give you the answer here in a second, which is more likely, but use this as a filter to gauge your quality of thinking. There is a right answer here for sure, but I want you to learn what you're more inclined to go to, and if you're more of a magical type of thinker or more of a practical type of thinker. So if you think that scraping a screwdriver across a circuit board, which is not what was supposed to happen, that when you turn that computer on again, once you've put it together, is that you're going to be like, wow, the performance of this laptop is way better. Oh my God, this thing runs faster than before. I can surf the internet 10 times faster. That would be an increase in performance from scraping a screwdriver across it. Or is it damaged? And it's likely that it's either going to work very slowly, it's going to be very glitchy, or it's literally not going to turn on at all. Okay? Now, if you answered that it would work better, that it would work faster by scraping a screwdriver across the circuit board of a computer, you need to do some work on your mental models, because that's very inaccurate. That's extremely unlikely. Okay? The more likelihood of what's going to happen is that the laptop's not going to turn on, that it's damaged, and it's permanently broken. So think about it. A hiatal hernia. Your vagus nerve runs right through that area. Your vagus nerve is not supposed to be squeezed. Your vagus nerve is not going to increase in function from that point on. It's only going to decrease. And what we see with decreased function, here's what we see. Inability to speak, inability to swallow, inability to digest food, uh, strange disconnection from your own emotions. That's also a side effect of decreased vagus nerve ability to function. And also an increase in anxiety, because it's the vagus nerve that, when the vagus nerve is working, it acts as a counterpoint, the yin to the yang of stress and anxiety. So if your vagus nerve is not there to regulate or to play referee, then anxiety is going to spike. So yeah, Jennifer, the answer is heck yeah. And so my suspicion would be that you need to work on it. But here's the other counterpoint, which is if you were on the video just a little bit earlier when I was talking about surgical cutting of the vagus nerve, a Nissen fundoplication and these kinds of surgeries can severely also worsen the situation. So it's probably going to be better to do some sonication of the vagus nerve rather than trying to get a surgical procedure to get this done, okay? And one last thing before we hop off is the thing that you must know is that oftentimes if you go to a hospital and you ask your doctor for what the best treatment is, they're not typically going to give you the best treatment. They're typically going to give you the one that makes the most money for them, or the one that the companies that manufacture the equipment or the drugs that are used in those surgeries promote the most. So a Nissen fundoplication probably makes quite a lot more money than some of the other options that are out there for a hiatal hernia. So I don't believe that a hiatal hernia, Nissen fundoplication, or any kind of surgery like that is a good idea, but you're certainly going to be pushed into it should you go that route. I would say I would so much rather explore sonication, vagus nerve sonication, before I ever went the route of any kind of surgical procedure for this. Staples, cutting, needles, all that kind of stuff, that's like danger zone, folks. Danger zone. Yeah, okay, so then you did, okay, so yes, you're welcome. You wrote, thank you, you're welcome. You wrote, I'm hoping I can reset my vagus nerves while working to fix the hiatal hernia next week. And certainly, I hope that for you too. I just want to remind you, I did a post, you probably missed this before, but you probably missed this before. I did a video and a post last week about this whole idea of, is the vagus nerve overstimulated or understimulated? And that's where I developed that kind of metaphor or analogy of if I jam a screwdriver into a computer, is it going to work better or worse? Because people are like, well, I had like a medical accident. Does that mean my vagus nerve is working better? I'm like, no, why would it? Like, come on, think, you people, think. As much as I do these videos, it's more about teaching people how to address health issues in somewhat of a rational, logical way. Now, here's the other thing. Resetting your vagus nerve, right? The same thing was in the same video, which is that your vagus nerve doesn't get reset. Your vagus nerve contains 250,000 fibers up and down. There's no such mechanism of reset. Now, it might feel like, if you did Valsalva squeeze and you go, that you get an effect. I guarantee you're not resetting your vagus nerve. The only way you could even make any claim that would be close to that was if you went for ECT. Do you guys know what ECT therapy is? Electroconvulsive therapy, where you run blasts of electricity through a nerve system. That would reset it, but that's not going to fix this problem. So again, talking about resetting your vagus nerve is cookie cutter, crunchy junk food, woo-woo stuff, okay? And I know this. I've done work with human beings on sonicating their vagus nerve for close to 7 years now. And my medical specialty is ultrasound neuromodulation for 12 years. So I've been doing actual practical neuroscience in clinic with neuroscience PhDs, doctors, anesthesiologists, heads of industry for 12 years. Okay? We're literally putting ultrasound right on the brain and stimulating nerves. There's not a single instance where you would ever want to reset those nerves. You can't reset a nerve. So as easy as it might seem to say that, oh gosh, girl, you just got to reset that nerve, it's going to be fine. There's no such mechanism that exists in practical neuromodulation of any form. Even with breathing or putting essential oils on your body or anything like that that has anything to do with resetting nerves. Okay? Resetting your back by popping it into place, maybe, yeah, right? Maybe you could say that. But for a nerve network called the vagus nerve, that is 250,000 is a quarter of a million individual axons. When you say you're going to reset the vagus nerve, out of the 250,000 individual strands and individual neurons, like a big cluster of like hair, think of a long braid of hair, okay? You're like, oh, I'm resetting all the hair. No, even if you were resetting something, you'd have to tell me what out of the 250,000 strands of axons of neurons in the vagus nerve branch did you reset exactly? That would be my question. Which ones out of the 250,000 did you just reset? That would be my question for you. And knowing that your vagus nerve connects to your heart and your lungs, and that if you were legitimately resetting those things, you could experience heart attack, respiratory failure. Oftentimes when the vagus nerve gets damaged, people have seizures and they swallow their tongue and they die. I wouldn't really be entertaining the idea of like, I really got to reset this nerve. I've got to reset the nerve, okay? Resetting the nerve is like, I'm going to take this magical pill that's going to just fix me. The fact of the matter is, I help people with this stuff all the time. And thinking that you're going to reset the nerve is it's just not a thing, okay? It's just not a thing. So whatever Jennifer, whatever you do decide to do, absolutely pursue it, explore it, give it a shot. But certainly we do have a program, phase 1. It's a very entry-level course. We set people up with a VNS sonicator right in there. We send it out to you. You get to use it. Many people here in the chat that are watching are also members of that. And I think they can all heavily vouch for how life-changing sonication of the vagus nerve can be. We're not trying to reset it, right? Charlene, did I ever reset your vagus nerve? No. Do you feel amazing? Absolutely. So you don't need this reset language to get benefits. So thanks for saying that, Shar. I appreciate that. But yeah, Jennifer, definitely we'll be doing a 5-day challenge here in another, I think, something like 10 days from now. We'll be launching a 5-day challenge. Would highly encourage you to join that. Learn more about this. Learn more about practically what this looks like, and consider joining. Get some real, get some real help. Certainly there are YouTube videos that say we're gonna reset your vagus nerve, and they're like 10-minute resets. There are cases where medical conditions rise to above the level of what a YouTube video can resolve. It's just true. So anyway, well, thanks guys so much for watching. I'm going to end it there. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll see you again tomorrow, same time, same place. Hope you enjoyed this video. And I hope that if you hear anybody in conversation and they're like, oh my God, I have type 2 diabetes, then be like, hey, you got to learn about the vagus nerve. There could be a very easy process to restore function of your pancreas and, don't get any issues with insulin resistance there, right? So awesome. Good. Glad it was a help. Yes, Sarah, exactly. Don't be discouraged, Jennifer. Of course, pursue anything and everything that you think can help. Be careful, again, and never want to discourage anybody from doing anything vagus nerve related, because obviously it's a high priority. But, again, hey, if I see a fellow traveler walking down a pathway and I'm like, hey, at the end of the day, I understand. Some people have to learn the hard way, for sure, right? They gotta try things and not get it. There have been people who've signed up for our phase 1 coaching program 3 years after they considered signing up for it, when they exhausted every other potential thing. And the phase 1 program was where they got the relief. So again, that's all a process that's really out of my hands, right? But all I can do is really just say, like, hey, just want you to consider that there are some other options here. And if we think about it properly, we oftentimes get better results the way that we think through the challenge. And if we see it more realistically, we can oftentimes get way better results, rather than kind of accepting what sounds good. What intuitively sounds good doesn't make it good or accurate or effective. Okay. Like, gosh, hey, if I could reset my whole life, oh, that'd be great. My relationship with an ex from high school, if I could just reset that relationship, it'd be so good. These kinds of things are not practical. They're not realistic. They don't exist. Okay. So anyway, all right, guys, thanks. Take care. Thanks everybody so much for watching. And we're going to play ourselves out with our Hour of Power audio. So get ready, get your Hour of Power mindset on. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.